No.
Listen.
Listen.
Wait.
I hate you for that.
Let me fix it. Hello, and welcome back to Let Me Fix It, the podcast that says,
but you can't do it like me. But I'm willing to teach you.
I'm Francesca Ramsey. I'm an actress, producer, writer, and graphic designer.
And I'm DeLon Grant. I'm an actor, singer, photographer, a writer, and an educator. That tagline, class, comes from Ermina, a listener who evidently had a presentation the day that she recorded the tagline and wrote that recording it boosted her confidence. So I'm glad to support you. Thank you for sending it in, Ermina. Remember, class, if you'd like to send us a tagline, shoot us an email with a voice note to letmefixitpod@gmail.com, and we might use it on the upcoming episode.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Fran, what she said was, I think the "Bet You Can't Do It Like Me" was like a nostalgic reference to the "Do It Like Me" dance challenges that were happening on the interwebs. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Do it like me? No, I don't know what that. This is a rare time where you know about something on the internet that I don't. This is the final days of Earth?
Literally though. I mean, I barely remember. I had to like. She says, "I bet you can't do it like me," and I was like, I know that, and I Googled it, and then I was like, oh, I do remember this, but you don't remember any of those dance challenges? It's like the pre-TikTok dance challenge.
No, I don't know about no do it like me. But class, Ermina said she is willing to teach you, which is very on brand for the pod because if we ain't getting sassy and cackling as we fix things, we are out here trying to learn something. And when DeLon and I tell you that we have learned what we have learned for today's episode, your jaw is about to be on the ground. In fact, I would just put your hand under your chin right now to catch it.
Catch that bitch right now, girl. Because we are still on our movie film moment. And when we were looking for another film genre to fit into this season, watching a documentary came up. But how do you fix a documentary which is based on objective facts? We're here to tell you, you actually don't. You just examine the facts and try to understand them. So Fran suggested this 2012 documentary called The Woman That Wasn't There, about a fake 9/11 survivor named Tanya Head, who was, you guessed it, not there at the Twin Towers. Evidently, she wasn't even in the United States.
No, there is really no way that we can get into the head of Miss Tanya Head. But after we unpack her lies and deceit, we damn sure are going to ask, what the hell, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? And you didn't think you weren't going to get caught, Miss Mama? But also, I had to bring up, Hollywood loves a scammer story. We've had so many series about different scammers. I recently watched Apple Cider Vinegar on Netflix. I really enjoyed it. About the woman who said that she had cancer.
The Australian woman.
And she cured her cancer by eating special vegetables and shit.
Yo.
So I thought, why haven't we had a movie version of Miss Tanya's story? And maybe we could do a little fan casting. Who do we think would play Tanya in the movie version of this story? So let's dive in. This is The Woman Who Wasn't There. Let me fix it.
You just gonna leave me alone like that?
Oh no, I jumped in at the end.
Okay, so before we dive in, as we always do, we want to make sure before we dive in, as we always do, we want to make sure you know that there will be spoilers. But this doc came out in 2012, so there ain't nothing that wasn't already available for you to watch. So I think you'll be okay. But the other thing we really want to say is that a bit of a trigger warning here, because we're going to be talking about 9/11, September 11th, survivors' trauma, and things like that. So, if you have to pause, we completely understand. Yeah. Fran, one of the things that struck me the most about watching this documentary is how scary the images and the footage were from that day. It's not that you forget them, but man, it's fucking epic to watch it replay.
Oh my God. I mean, I truly remember being at school and watching on the news. I mean, Every single class, we were watching it. No one was getting any schoolwork done that day. And truly, the scale of it is just unbelievable to look back on. But the idea that it wasn't a catastrophe or an accident, but rather a coordinated attack is what really makes it so horrific.
I know. And to your point, like the obligatory conversation before we get on to Tanya's crazy deceit is like, where were you? Right. So you
Mhm.
said we were juniors in high school. You were in high school in
No,
your classroom?
seniors in
Was it,
high
were we
school.
seniors?
Yes,
Damn. Oh, it
because
was
this
the
happened in
fall of
2000. It
2001.
happened
Yes.
2001, and as you know, 2002 is when we
When we
graduated.
graduated.
I remember it was a Tuesday and we had a half day at school. And I was going to my friend Matt's house and we were going to burn one down. I was so excited. I was like, we about to be,
This
we're
bitch
going
has
to be
always been a
high.
pothead. Always been a
I was like,
pothead.
I cannot wait to get out of this joint and smoke this joint. Let's fucking go. And I just remember like everything happening. And then we got out of school and I went to my friend's house and we sat there like, I mean, truly it's not funny, but like we were just like, we're so sad we can't even smoke weed. We just like sat there
Damn.
watching the TV in shock, not even talking to each other,
Mm.
just being like, what is happening? This is so fucking surreal. And I remember one of my teachers, his son was going to Circle in the Square in New York and he
Wow.
was just a wreck, just worried because,
Mm.
you know, this was pre everybody having a
Cell
cell
phone.
phone. So
Yeah.
he was like, I don't know where my son is. And his son had just graduated like maybe the year before. So we all knew him and we were all like, it
Wow.
was just, and thankfully his son was okay. But man, it was so wild. Where were you?
Yeah, similar. I was in my English class, and another teacher had like popped into our English class and told our teacher to turn the TV on. And I just saw, Katie Couric and Matt Lauer on the Today Show trying to explain to us what was happening. And you see like the image of the two towers, and we literally watched because I
Mm.
also grew up in Minnesota, so we're an hour. It's like 8 a.m. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. Time is time. But like we watched the second plane hit
Oh
the
my
other
God.
tower, and we
Yeah.
were like,
Yeah.
oh my! And nobody knew what the fuck was happening. And
Yeah.
did you have this experience in New York too? People who lived in New York that I met and became friends with, a lot of Broadway people in particular, recounted where they were
Yeah.
living, and how crazy it was to be. I can just, to your point about your teacher's son, I can imagine being in New York and what that. I had a friend who was supposed to be at work in the towers and just didn't go. Wasn't
I
there?
mean, there are so many stories of people who narrowly escaped being in the Twin
I
Towers. And,
know.
you know, when I thought about watching this documentary, thinking about you being in Come From Away and that
I
like you have
know.
this connection to a 9/11 story. And
Yes.
to your point about New Yorkers have been forever shaped by this moment. That's for all of those reasons. You don't even have to be a New Yorker specifically to have a personal connection to 9/11. But for that reason, the fact that this woman just made up a whole story about her being there
Crazy,
is
crazy.
wild. Okay. I mean, and it's just it's not funny. It's not funny.
No.
It is baffling. And we're gonna get into this, but I also have to remind myself that 9/11 changed the way that we go to the airport.
I
Like
mean,
your family used to be able to meet you at the gate.
they used to be there at the gate when you arrived, right? That they like you didn't need to get an entire like CAT scan MRI of your
And
body
take
to
off
get
your
through security.
and take off your shoes and pour out your expensive hair and makeup products and
I know,
stuff.
like 3 ounces of liquid. I mean, you needed like 24 ounces for them dry ass feet, but.
Wow. Okay. The shots
Wait.
fired.
Wait, I crafted these lines so I could just get that line in. That's the whole reason was for that.
Okay, you
But it
got
did
me on
change.
that
It
one.
did change our lives, like
Yeah.
dramatically.
Mm-hmm. All right, so our travel experience changed class, but what the survivors of the tragedy were dealing with was more than what most of us could imagine. Not only were they dealing with survivor's guilt, like, why was I spared? How did I make it out when no one else in my office did? But survivors were also at a loss for how to cope. I mean, can you blame them? This is an event
No,
that none of us have experienced, you know, in the United States at least. And so one survivor reported making it out of the building just 4 minutes before one of the towers collapsed. Another was delivering mail in one tower and made it out, but her fiance working in the other tower
Ugh,
didn't. Another survivor talked about a period of constantly waking up and going to sleep thinking about 9/11. And so if you're thinking, what do you do with all that shock and trauma? a lot of them turned to the early internet and started support groups.
Yes, this guy, Jerry Bogus, was one of the co founders of the World Trade Center Survivors Network. And he said that at some point, you just couldn't talk to your family anymore because they've heard it all and kept repeating yourself.
Yeah.
And at some point, your need to talk was greater than their ability to listen, which I think is so profound, like a really great
Yeah.
way of encapsulating what he experienced. And the World Trade Center Survivors Network grew out of online message boards, like Fern was saying, from the early internet, full of survivors looking for a safe space to convene and find community and talk. Evidently, this woman, Tanya Head, was active on the message boards and quickly became a driving force in the network itself. One of the more notable things the documentary mentions is that after years of the group trying to get access to the pit or ground zero so that they could have some kind of closure around their experience, they're being pushed back by politicians and all of these officials. Somehow Tanya was able to secure a visit for the survivors, which like gave her a lot of cachet with the group.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really wild because on the one hand, we now know that she was making all this up, but she did a lot of good. Like
She
she was
did.
helping and being a shoulder to cry on and supporting all of these peoples. Not only did she woo the survivors with her dedication to the network, organizing meetings and fundraising efforts and donating her own money to its causes, but she also had a harrowing survival story that the other survivors really felt paled in comparison to their own trauma. Tanya said, "It's not enough for me to be a survivor. I have to have
I'm
gone
the best
through
survivor.
the worst experience that any of y'all could deal with." So Tanya's claim was that she was working for the investment firm Merrill Lynch on the 78th floor when the first tower was hit. She then heard a scream, "There's another plane." And Tanya remembers being blown into a marble wall. Her back and arm were on fire from the impact, which was put out by a man wearing a red bandana, who is now known as a very famous person that was killed during the attacks. Then a firefighter carried her out of the building and placed her under a fire truck when the buildings collapsed. She woke up in the hospital with severe scarring on her arm, and Tanya also reported that her fiance, Dave, died in the North Tower when it collapsed. As her story goes, the last time she spoke to Dave was when he called her to see if she wanted to grab a coffee, but she was walking into a meeting and couldn't meet him.
Now, we now know that Tanya's story was all bullshit, but the survivors reported that there really wasn't anyone who wanted to question another survivor's story, which makes absolute sense. Everyone's just trying to
Yeah.
find a way to convene and hold space for everyone's trauma. Even when there were inconsistencies in Tanya's story or the way she would relay it. Dave would become her husband and not merely her fiance, and then she couldn't remember or never got the name of the firefighter who carried her out of the building. Other survivors never, at least publicly, wanted to question her. One of them recounted there being an odd hierarchy of trauma around among the survivors. They said Tanya's story contained the worst parts of so many survivors' stories that to question it, despite their reservations, inconsistencies, or questions, just felt like sacrilege.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were just so many moments of this that blew my mind. But the fact that Tanya did research on this man, Dave, and then claimed that he was her fiance, and then they had a posthumous service. They had a ceremony to marry her to this man that she
Crazy.
didn't fucking know. Like, what?
Crazy.
Tanya's lies would eventually lead her to become the president of the World Trade Center Survivors Network. But like somebody's black grandmama used to say, you tell one lie, you have to tell 7 more to keep it up the charade. Folks obviously had questions about Tanya's fiance, Dave, who died in the towers. Now, the Dave that Tanya claimed was her fiance was, in fact, someone that died in the towers. He just wasn't her fiance. He didn't even fucking know she existed. In an interview, she recounts the meet cute where her and Dave supposedly. In an interview, she recounts this meet cute where Dave stole her taxi as she was hailing it outside of the towers. Now, Tanya, you watching too many rom-coms.
Okay, not Meg Ryan over here. Not
Like,
You've Got
he
Mail.
stole her taxi, and then like, what did y'all got in the taxi, and then y'all start dating? Like, that doesn't
Right.
even make any fucking sense. Okay, so because of how they met, when Tanya would go to the memorial, she would always bring a toy yellow taxi cab to Ground Zero on the 9/11 anniversary. But despite her story, she never had any pictures with her and Dave. And she never, talked to Dave's family.
That part.
They were never around. She wasn't talking to Dave's coworkers.
But I'm thinking, if you're bringing a little toy taxi, I'm gonna have a picture of him. I'm gonna have a framed picture of him so you know who he is of us.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things where hindsight is 2020, but
Sure.
how convenient that she has a cute little story that comes with a little cute branded taxi cab. It's just a little too on the nose.
And do you remember her telling the story about how he proposed to her? She said one day she came home and there were rose petals on the floor, and then she turned the corner and he's in a coconut bra and a grass skirt and doing a dance, and they're going to Maui for their wedding. And then they sent out invitations saying they got Maui'd, but it was Maui'd, not married, Maui. But then it wasn't an actual ceremony because then they would be married. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Because Hawaii's in the 50 states. You could get married in Hawaii.
He did all of that, supposedly, to then just take her there and have a dedication ceremony, not a real wedding. And again, to your point, Delon, nobody's going to question this. She's a survivor. And so I'm sure they all were these details are very strange, but no one wants to believe, why would you do this? Why would you make up a story like this?
There's such immense lengths. It's just so not grotesque. It is grotesque, but it's just so extreme, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, class, if you're thinking this is crazy, cracks in Tanya's story really began to show when her behavior around survivor events became erratic. She's the president, so she's expected to show up and do different speaking gigs and things like that. She was asked to speak at the opening of the 9/11 Tribute Museum, which was a project created by the September 11th families. They gave tours at 9/11 and talked about their own experience. A lot of survivors gave these tours. So the opening of this museum was a major news event attended by Mayor Giuliani and Mayor, I forget who the governor was of the state at the time, and other New York City politicians. Evidently, Tanya had a panic attack right before the event because she knew she was lying. And at another event, the family of the red bandana guy that Fran mentioned earlier, who was a hero, he was a young man named Wells Crowther, who Tanya claimed put that fire out on her back and her arm. Wells's family asked her to give a speech at an annual church service that they held for Wells. She got overly anxious when she was about to give this speech, and she had another survivor, one of her best friends, this woman named Linda, read her remarks. So it's all just starting to crumble around her. She's getting really anxious herself, just again to clarify, Wells Crowther, he's this red bandana guy who a lot of people know. He worked as a trader in the towers, but he was also a volunteer firefighter, which he was really passionate about. He is said to have gone back into the towers 3 different times and saved 18 people's lives before losing his own. That is just insanely amazing.
I mean, an actual hero, and it's just so mind-boggling that this woman would attach herself to this man and become friendly with his family.
Talk about
to the point that they went to dinner with her and they were spending time with her, and they were even defending her.
Yes.
When there was, started to be rustlings that she had made this whole thing up, they kind of, went out of their way to be like, we believe her. This is our friend. And, I could only imagine that his parents wanted to develop relationships with people that he had saved as a way to have a connection to their son. You are just taking advantage of people in their most vulnerable moment of their lives. It's just so bizarre. So just before the 6th anniversary of 9/11, a journalist with the New York Times, David Dunlap, called Tanya and started asking questions to corroborate her story. He also started calling other members of the World Trade Center Survivors Network, asking questions, and Dunlap found that not only was Tanya avoiding him, but that she refused to answer some very basic questions about her life surrounding the tragedy, like why there was no record of her working at Merrill Lynch in the towers, which is pretty, Tanya.
Did you work for them or didn't you? That's mad basic.
But it also is one of those things where, you really didn't think this through, girl. That was kind of one of the first bases you should have covered.
Well, and I think the anonymity of the internet, which I think we've talked about, and honestly more than I do, but like if you are somebody this is not trying to justify her behavior, which I know we're going to talk a little bit about toward the end of the episode, but like when you are looking for community, when you're looking for the internet is a great space to find it. And there was also, remember that woman, there was a podcast about that woman who pretended she had cancer, got all this money.
I mean, unfortunately, there's a lot of them like that. Like, and
I forget
honestly,
what that
the
woman's
way
name is. Samantha, Scamantha, I think her name was the name of the podcast.
The way I found out about this story was I was listening to You're Wrong About, and they did an April Fool's special of people who've written fake memoirs. And they talked about, the guy who wrote A Million Little Pieces.
A Million Little Pieces.
They also talked about Rachel Dolezal.
Wow.
They talked about a number of people, and they mentioned this documentary. And I was like, this is fascinating. But yeah, unfortunately, with the internet, a lot of people have found that the more heartbreaking your story is, it's easy to gain an audience. And unfortunately, they also are aware that most people are not going to question you because nobody wants to be the asshole that's like, oh, prove you had cancer. Let me see the doctor's reports. It's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Well, and you also like, I think people also want to believe you, right?
Yes.
Again, they're trying to find community. They want to. I think most people are good and act in good faith, right? So they're going to receive your story because they don't know you. They're going to receive your story as you tell it, right? I'm going to do that until proven otherwise, until the inconsistencies start showing up, as they did for Tanya. And after doing some digging themselves, the survivors that were closest to Tanya found out that she wasn't even in New York City on 9/11, like we said. Girl was getting her MBA in Barcelona on the day of the attacks, which is insane. In fact, her name is not even Tanya Head. This bitch's name is Alicia Esteve. If that's how you say it.
You know what's so funny is that, remember in I think it was in the Brady Bunch movie when the sister is pretending she has a boyfriend and they're like, what's his name? And she's like, George. And she looks at a cup and she goes, glass, George Glass. I feel like that's what Tanya did. Tanya was like, Tanya, head. I have a head. Tanya Head. Like, what kind of fake ass name is Tanya Head?
God, and the lengths you had to go, right? She wasn't even in the States, and she didn't graduate from the MBA program until 2002. She was still in Barcelona. How did she come to the United States, to New York, and start this whole ruse? Maybe she was doing it from Spain. Who knows?
Who knows?
So, like I said, she's not even from the United States. She's from Spain, and she just reinvented herself. In fact, the scarring that she had on her arm, which she very much does have, was not from the fire, the plane hitting the building and her being blown away like she claimed. That's from a car accident that she had with some friends on vacation. She even lied about having a dog. She has this dog named Elvis, I guess, and one of the survivors who was her friend, she'd always talk about this dog, but whenever this friend would go to her house, she was like, where's this dog at? Where's this dog at? And then she would ask Tanya every time, where's your dog? And every time Tanya was like, oh, I think Lupe's walking him. Who was Lupe? And this is the most privileged dog in the world. So she's just like a liar all around.
But also, this one really blew me away because it's like, Tanya, you could just go get a dog. You don't have to, like,
right,
you know what I mean? Like, forget all of the reasons that might lead you to lie about being a survivor of 9/11, okay? But to lie about having a dog, you don't have to lie about that. You could
you could
not
even
have
like, you could be a foster parent for a dog. You ain't gotta...
exactly. You don't even have to commit. Ask Delon. You could send.
How?
You know what? I had to
good.
fucking get you when you talk about my ashy feet.
Oh my God. That was so fucking good. I gotta give it to you. God damn. I didn't see it coming. I did not see it. Left her.
You know what?
Damn.
And you brought up the you brought up the fostering. You set it up right for me.
Oh my God.
All right. So as I said before, you tell one lie, you have to tell 7 to keep up the charade. But here's the thing about Tanya Head's lies. She didn't commit any crimes, okay? She didn't embezzle any money. So not only are you a thief, not only are you a liar, you're a dumb liar.
You're
You
a
didn't even
bad
get
liar.
you didn't get anything out of this. So
Right.
she didn't embezzle any money from the organization. She actually donated money, okay? She volunteered her time and fought for the World Trade Center Survivors Network's causes. So she may have been morally bankrupt, but she wasn't a criminal, okay? Or was she? I mean, I don't. This is a hard one because it's
Yeah.
like
It's a moral
didn't.
question.
It's a moral question. She didn't actually break any laws, but she took advantage of some very vulnerable people. And so I think the question that we all have when we hear stories like this is why? Why go to such great lengths? Like, what makes a person lie about something like this? So, we're going to take a quick break and then see if we can answer why the hell Tanya did all of this and talk about who should play her if there was to be a movie or TV show about her shenanigans. We will be right back. And we are back. Okay, Delon, why do you think, what would drive somebody to make up this sort of elaborate lie that could, again, clearly be easily debunked by like just asking basic ass questions? Like,
It's so true.
Where did you actually work?
I have the records. You did not work for Merrill Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, this is my like empathy weather vane, like, and bubble being very, very vast as it is. Like, we're not psychologists here, but something tells me that like people do crazy shit like this because they want to feel important. They want their lives to have meaning, and I think also community, right? And so like the logic part of your makeup just is superseded by your actual need. In your heart, right? Whatever. I think she just wanted to feel special, and this was a very sick way of doing it. But getting this attention, you know, around this tragic experience, gave her that fix really, really quickly. And it's a drug too, right? It's like,
oh yeah,
you're a survivor. Okay, what's your story? Everyone wanted to know everyone's stories, and they're giving you not only empathy and sympathy, but they're like sitting with you, giving you time. Your name, you become somebody, you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, she was at press conferences.
Girl.
She was in, the marketing materials. She was front and center. She was doing the tours. And, there was a clip of her on one of the tours where the woman said, Tanya's here and she speaks Spanish, so she's going to be helping us. And Tanya's like, I'm going to interpret for y'all. Like, to your point, she wanted to feel special.
Right.
And in the documentary, they talked to some of her friends and people that grew up with her in Barcelona. And they talked about her being bullied for her weight, and that, she had siblings and she kind of was like the baby of the family and didn't get that much attention. So I think all of that played a role. What's so confusing to me is like, it's not enough for you to just be a volunteer. I'm sure there were tons of people volunteering, but I think she really became addicted to the attention because even the details that she was sharing were so graphic about people around her dying and the voices she was hearing and the flames and the plane. And like, she definitely was getting off on people feeling bad for her.
Right.
And so that's really sad.
Absolutely. There's a factual I want to mention here too. I never heard this term, a mythamomaniac, which is a pathological or habitual liar that lies for no reason, right? It seems to me that Tanya was lying for a very specific reason, but I bring this up because someone who is this calculated and lying, I think is scary for me. And I really want a name for it. Fraud and con artists don't really seem to fit because, like you said earlier, she really didn't get anything from it. I guess she got something from it emotionally, but, and those terms kind of imply some kind of theft or deceit. She did deceive people. But I want a name for it. Mythamaniac doesn't seem appropriate, but like, I'm sure some psychologist has a name for it.
Yeah, mythomaniac also sounds like somebody that has like superpowers or something. Like they're conjuring up myths, but you're right. We do need a word for, I mean, I always just think of someone being called a pathological liar. Yeah. The thing that I've heard. The thing that I also keep thinking about is when you encounter somebody like this that erodes your trust, it sticks with you. It's another traumatic experience because then you're unable to trust other people. You start thinking like, well, and it's just the layers here because these are people who were already dealing with so much trauma and guilt from 9/11. Why didn't I do things differently? Why am I alive? All of those things. And then to be taken advantage of by this woman, then they start doing it again to themselves. Why did this
Yeah.
happen to me?
What did
Why
I
didn't
do to make it happen or cause it?
Why
Yeah.
didn't I notice? When she said this thing, why didn't I ask? Da, 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 da. I let her into my home. I introduced her to my friends and
I
family.
told her really private things, you know?
I cried on her shoulder. And then, Tanya was doing the thing where she would be crying. And if somebody said like, okay, girl, I have other stuff to do. She's like, how dare you? I've been through so much. And they're like, okay, girl, this is a Wendy's. I have to, I'm trying to, eat my salad.
Right.
Like, again, like you want to hold space for other people, but it did seem at some point she was escalating this to the point where it needed to be all about her.
Yeah.
And then the guilt that people were feeling like, oh man, she's been through so much. And here I am unwilling to listen to her and go about my life. I'm just such a bad person. It's very sick.
Yeah, it started from a place of like need for her, and then it became very quickly manipulative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very quickly. Like she got the Jerry Bogus was one of the guys with the co-founders of the World Trade Center Survivors Network. She got
kicked his
kicked
ass
off
out.
the board by the other board, like crazy. So for me, it's like the ease and the scale with which she just kind of launched into this. Her lies went on for 5 years until this New York Times journalist was like, hey, I found some inconsistencies, on the eve of the 6th anniversary. It's crazy to me. And as someone who has trust issues, I'm always talking about my therapy on this podcast. As someone who has trust issues, I realize that that's because of stuff that I've experienced, but we all have trust issues, right? Because trust requires vulnerability, and that requires giving yourself a part of yourself over to somebody, over to people, right? That you hope are going to treat you right and in good faith and take care of you. And to have that vulnerability betrayed, and or contorted or used against you, I don't know how you recover from that. That's really, you have to be some kind of, Jesus type monk to forgive that kind of stuff, because I ain't got that.
I mean, I was really heartened by the fact that so many of the people did say, I forgive her.
They
Obviously,
did.
something's going on with her. That was very kind of them. Only one person was like, I don't think about that bitch.
That
he
bitch.
was like, I don't think about her. I don't care what she doing, where she at. And I agreed with him, but nobody was full blown like, fuck that bitch.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Girl.
I am right now in this very moment. Tanya Head, if you are listening, or whatever your fucking name is, Alicia Esteve. But here's the thing. After she was exposed, she disappeared and was never to be heard from again. They should start a hotline. I'm sure somebody out here is friendly with her and she is spinning more lies.
I was going to say, she's in South America bamboozling somebody else, so please.
I mean, and you know what? This is a great segue, because if there was a docuseries about her life, they always end on this open-ended moment. And I think it's just kind of like her at the airport somewhere going off to scam again.
Getting her ticket stamped to go off somewhere else. Damn.
And she has the most, she looks at the lady at the counter and she's like, oh, I was a survivor of 9/11. It's really difficult for me to ride planes. And the lady's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'll let you on first. She's like, oh, thank you so much.
And then there's one little look at the camera. She looks directly at us as she walks down the gangway or whatever it's called.
Yeah. Okay. So Delon, I have a few people that I would pitch to play Tanya in the Netflix series. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. This is kind of a weird one, but I think it could work. Catherine O'Hara.
Yeah, listen, Catherine O'Hara can do anything. She can do and she's a great dramatic actress too.
Right. And I think that, this is this story is ridiculous. It's heartbreaking, but there's something that I really love about seeing a comedic actress transform to play like a villain. So I think she would be really, really interesting. I was also going to say Rachel Dratch from SNL.
Rachel Dratch, hands down.
I honestly,
Yes.
I feel like Rachel Dratch is so underrated. She's so fucking funny. She absolutely deserves to have a big career. Like,
Where is she?
I don't know. Maybe we need to do a Let Me Fix It on her.
Who is she upset?
I don't know, but she's so freaking funny. I think she would be great in this. Another one that's really weird, don't judge me, Nikki Blonsky from Hairspray.
Oh, where is she at?
Girl, she's on Cameo doing cameos. You haven't been on Nikki Blonsky Talk? All she does is does cameos. She's like, I'm Nikki Blonsky. And then she sings a little bit of Hairspray. Oh my God, Delon.
I mean, what's crazy sad about that is I know exactly who you're talking about, and I was like, "Who's Nikki Blonsky?"
Oh, that's
damn,
her.
that was to launch her career from the Hairspray movie. Damn.
Oh yeah, well she I mean, listen, she ended up, she said some racial slurs in an airport. Ironically enough,
shit.
she got caught on camera beefing with somebody in an airport. But I was going through like actresses online, and I was just like, who has like the kooky energy of like a fucking weirdo with like a twitch in her eye? You know what I mean? And I feel like that's Nikki Blonsky.
You know what? I wrote down on here Rebel Wilson. I think Rebel Wilson, but I think Rebel might make it a little too quirky. I also put down Megan Stalter. I think that's just going to be fucking funny.
Oh my
Megan
God,
Stalter's just going to be funny.
Megan Stalter is a really, but again, to your point about, comedians being great dramatic actresses, I think it would be really interesting to see her like go all the way, and just
make a turn,
and not give us funny at all, and just be super dramatic with it. I
hear
think
that.
That's a great one.
I don't know if she would take it, but Kate Winslet seems like low hanging fruit. Like they're all doing indie movies now. You know what I mean? Well, did you see what she did that? Gosh, she did that funny. God, I can't remember. She's like this dictator. This HBO.
Oh, I didn't see that.
It's very funny, but it was very charactery. But then she did when she was that cop, I
don't know what it was called. Yeah, it was fine. But to that same point, I thought Melissa McCarthy would be like very obvious, but I feel like she would kill it. I feel like she would really kill this.
Yes, heard.
Oh my God. Well, listen, Netflix, if you're listening, just make us executive producers. I don't need to be in the writer's room. Just put my name in lights and I'll be happy.
Absolutely. I want to be like that man that everyone keeps saying is in Hacks, that everyone's like, you look like the actor in Hacks. I'm like, I know I look like the actor in Hacks. Can somebody cast my ass in Hacks? Thank you so much.
We are friendly. I definitely ran into them at my local dispensary.
Oh, really? Oh, they, them is their pronouns. Forgive me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think their name is Carl. And they came up to me and they were like, I love you. And I was like, I love you. But you know what? I do see the resemblance.
Yeah, no, listen, spot on. Them and Jason Derulo, I get a lot.
Really? Oh, that's so funny. Here's the thing, Delon. I think that you should just take advantage of it. I think you should start showing up places and be like, do you know who I am? And then when people are like, the actor from Hacks, you're like, exactly. Yes. Where's my table?
This should be free. Thank you very much. All right. So class, there was no fixing this mess, but let us know your thoughts on the topic in general. And let's discuss it on Instagram or at FixItPod, or email us lemifixitpod at let me do this again. All right, class.
Are you drunk?
There's nothing but coffee in this mug, but all right, class, there was no fixing this mess, but let us know your thoughts about the topic, our recasting. Who would you cast in it? Mm-hmm. Get at us on Instagram at FixItPod, or email us lemifixitpod@gmail.com. Now it's time for my favorite segment and everyone's favorite segment, the Glow Up, where we give props to those who've turned themselves around without our help. Fran, why don't you go first?
Ooh, I can't go first because I don't have a glow up this week.
Okay, well, I
forgot.
Go.
I've been slammed.
You really have.
Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, where am I? Who am I? What time is it? And truthfully, I truly forgot that I needed to write a glow up. So I'm passing it over to you.
Yeah, this is more of a stay up, I guess. So Ryan Coogler's been in the news for his new movie Sinners.
I haven't seen it yet. Have you seen it?
I have not seen it. I think we should see it and do it for the pod.
Oh, season. I would love that. Okay.
Yes. But he's been getting a lot of news because evidently the studios are up in arms for his deal. Yes. So class, Ryan Coogler wrote and directed this movie Sinners, starring Michael B. Jordan, my husband. Can't wait to see it. And evidently, some of the things that he got were, the movie was $90 million. He got first dollar, first dollar gross. Mm-hmm. So first dollar gross means usually what happens is after a movie, a film studio makes that $90 million back, then that's when people start making more money on whatever the film earns. Mm-hmm. But Ryan Coogler negotiated from the first dollar, even when it's in movie theaters, he's making money. After 25 years, the film reverts back to him, ownership completely, which people are up in arms about that. But like Quentin Tarantino has that. A couple other writer-directors have that. But studios are really up in arms saying like, this is going to change the whole
God
studio
forbid
model.
people own their own work. They're God forbid that you created something that makes a studio money and you get a piece of it up fucking front.
And you get just as much as they do. Sorry.
You did the fucking work. You did the work.
And there's the thing. The studio's like, their argument would be like, I'm taking a risk with $90 million. It took me 5 years to write this fucking movie.
Right.
I had
you
to get
wrote not one word.
Thank you. Right. The other thing is, I haven't watched, I don't know anything about what the film is about, but Ryan Coogler's in it, or wrote it, directed it, and Michael B. Jordan's in it. I'm there. Evidently, it's something about Black folks. Duh.
Oh yeah. But it's about the Jim Crow South. It's a horror movie set in the Jim Crow South.
And y'all are saying that the irony that you want full ownership of that. And he said, and this after 25 years, he said, y'all can make money on it for 25 years. And then after it, I want that. Here's the problem. I think they already know this is going to be a sequel. And I think it's already built for there to be some kind of episodic associated with it. So if he has that much ownership of it, then they just get less of the pie. Greedy motherfuckers.
Oh, 1000%. And, kind of we have talked about Cord Jefferson so many times on this podcast, but the reality is the studio system is outdated and needs to change. And if they are this upset about artists having ownership of their work, it's like, well, what are y'all doing? Y'all just want to make money. Y'all don't actually care about artistry. You don't care about giving folks an opportunity to tell untold stories and give opportunities to new people. I mean, Ryan Coogler is notoriously good about casting actors who are early in their career, about having Black women have been his directors of photography on all of his films.
Wow.
I mean, he is really shifting culture and has done such profound work and shown that he has talent across many genres. He can make the Hollywood blockbuster. He can make a horror film.
Right.
He can make, something that is historical, with Fruitville Station. Am I saying that right?
Fruitvale Station.
Fruitvale Station. So he clearly has an immense amount of talent and should be compensated accordingly.
Right.
And it is quite telling that the studios are afraid that he is going to set a precedent that favors artists.
Well, they were saying the same thing about Ava DuVernay when she was like, "Oh, I'm not going the distribution method with the Isabella Wilkerson based cast." When she was like, "No, I'm raising money in a different way," and I don't know how that's going for her. I hope it's going well, but I appreciate how everyone is like trying to reshape. They're trying to reshape all of it because again.
It's broken.
This is political.
It's been broken for a long time.
But, and billionaires are billionaires and millionaires are millionaires. And like, how much money do you actually need? Why can't we diversify and artists be paid for what they're creating? And to your point about how he's paying it forward or reaching down and pulling people up, like, isn't that part of like the karmic way you create anything?
It should be. It should be. But unfortunately, our industry has. And unfortunately, every industry, whether you're talking about housing or healthcare, I mean, these billionaires are coming in and mucking it up for everybody. So shout out to Ryan Coogler for saying what you're not about to do is have me fucked up.
and shout out to him for like negotiating that too and sticking to it, like and getting yours. Yo, teach me how. I love
knowing
that.
your worth is a big deal because he said, "I know the movie's good. It's a matter of if you want to make it or not."
That part, because
it'll be a hit. Yeah. All right, class. So now we want to hear from you. We asked for your casting suggestions for Tanya Head, or maybe you would like to suggest a TV show, a celebrity, or a brand that we should fix in a future episode. Hit us up on Instagram @FixItPod or email us lemmefixitpod@gmail.com.
And remember that YouTube channel, faces, lots of faces, lots of mistakes that don't happen on the audio too. You can watch that on YouTube at youtube.com/@FixItPod. And if you enjoyed this episode, as always, please give us a rating on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app. I am Francesca.
And I'm Delon, and this was Let
Let
Me
me
Fix
fix
It.
it.
Oh, you thought you were slick.
I did think I was slick.